Hi, my name is Charlotte and I'm a studio holder at S1 Artspace, and this is my studio holder takeover, which took place virtually on the 30th of March 2020. Using my studio at S1 and the workshop facilities at York St John University, I've been building a series of sculptures that highlight the language and communicative devices used when referring to a hidden and overlooked space, focusing on the personal presence within these forms of communication. My work is often inspired by street furniture and public design, and how these structures contain elements of personal taste and presence. Through this body of work, I've been investigating how the language used to relate to a space can become indicative of the space itself. How a space, such as the underneath, the ground below us, which to so many is an inaccessible space, accessed only by the people who work within it, is referred to or communicated about through language that also is only accessible to these same group of people. Exploring how this language is communicated, what structures remain in place to harbour this information, and how personal presence is abundant in these spaces. Often this language, similar to the spaces themselves, remains overlooked. Within our day-to-day lives, we walk over spray-painted markings, past posts that stand pinned against walls, round barriers containing upturned earth, and on top of manhole covers covering the voids below. Very rarely do we stop and look in an effort to try and discover what these codes might mean and what people might use them. Each mark that adorns my marker post is directly copied from a mark left by a worker, and just as their handwriting remains present in these shapes, my hand is also present. Each laser-cut element was not electronically traced from photographs, but hand-drawn by me before being engraved. The marker posts cast in jesmonite were made entirely out of clay and hand-built, and so hold my touch within their shape. With public infrastructures, we often assume unity and order, but often there's such a variation. Not all marker posts are made or cast in the same shape or using the same concrete, and different builders and road workers use a variety of different codes to communicate with each other. You can see that each of my marker posts has either been coated or embossed with a textured surface. This surface references concepts of personal taste implemented within the public realm. The texture used is textured wallpaper, which has heavy associations to the home and the home in a certain period, and it references both personal taste and the implementation of similar decorative devices on functioning industrial furniture, such as plaster textured electricity boxes, which you'll find on streets or near tram stops. The marker post became for me a signifier of communication, relating to the below, a structure to utilise and communicate what lies beneath the surface, a tool for the sharing of information. The language used between the road workers is not the only form of language used on the marker post. I explored other devices used to signify a presence below, and found an answer in the work of stonemasons in the headstones of Welsh graves. Here, a structure used to signify a presence and existence of a person held the direct presence of another, not only in the style or design implemented by the stonemason, but in the mistakes. The language used tells the story of the maker. He leaves his mark like the workers sprawling their handwriting on the pavement. The presence of his mistakes in spelling and grammar eternalises him in the headstone, just as the workmen leave their presences within the ground. Sometimes the mark is one of permanence, and in other cases it only lasts for days. And I'm quite interested in the contrast between the fleeting factual information and permanent errors. On the cast jesmonite marker post, you can see an example of the stonemason's mark. On one of the headstones I observed, the word body had been separated and the B and O stood on the end of a line as the D and Y started the next. This solution or mistake was made in relation to space, in relation to a lack of space. A key element throughout the pieces is the contrast between presence and absence. This feels intrinsic to the subject matter. Exploring a space that lies beneath sometimes feels like exploring a nothing space. It's present, but it also exists below our understanding of inhabited space. Within each use of language there is an absence of the person who wrote it. Each form of language relies on this absence. The codes would not exist if there were not a change of workers, a team that leaves and one which comes to carry on the job. The headstones rely on a person's absence, of loss, and through process a removal of material. The engraving brings forth the existence of text through a removal of stone. In these images used on the pieces, not only is there a removal of material, but also a removal of person. These photographs document the stages in between workforces, when the sites are left unmanned, but time where the evidence of those people still remains, in the discarded tools, equipment and personal items, as well as the piles of earth and chasms of space. The marker posts themselves contain a presence, or lack of, in their information. Some contain plaques of information and others remain empty. Amongst the markers, there's also broken spray-painted slabs. These reference the sections of broken paving marked with X's to signify where extraction is required. And how all the pieces sat within the space was also important for me, and this particular gallery setting allows for the marker post to feel at home on the hard industrial concrete flooring. The X garage block provides an interesting connection between indoor and outdoor, and the lowered ceiling heightens the pieces, bringing them further into our field of vision. Amongst the pieces spaced throughout the gallery, there's also floor markings permanent to the gallery space. White X marks faded on the concrete and writing carved into the one setting surface. As language has played such a key part in this exhibition, a written word piece also accompanies the sculptures, layered in the same process as the images on each post. As this exhibition exists wholly virtually, there was no need for exhibition guides. Instead, I aim to reuse these printed pieces to create a series of zines, allowing the exhibition to take on a new form and be accessed further afield.